Hello and welcome to this edition, this Friday evening edition, December 18th, 2020 of the Bobby Hesley Show. How you doing, folks? You hanging in there? Your man Bobby Hesley's been very, very busy, and that's part of why I wanted to hop on here tonight and do a broadcast. Just want to kind of update everybody on the latest going on with everything and also the latest goings on with me personally. So first off, if you haven't done so, hit up all my social media channels, particularly my YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow that, make it very easy to do in the comments section in the description of the video. Like and share this video, comment on it. It really helps me with the algorithms. So today is 2018. Today was supposed to be a pretty big day. Missed you too, Julie. I see some people weighing in. It's always good to hear from everybody. Hello from Indiana. Hello from Iowa. How is everybody? Guys, I hope you're staying sane. I hope you're not binging the news. Well, I hope you're not binging anything, whether it's Netflix, news, alcohol, food. We shouldn't binge anything, but particularly we shouldn't be binging the news, especially with some of the crazy times like we're living in right now. You guys have to focus on the things that are within your control. This isn't going to be a very long broadcast. I'm actually trying to listen to the feedback of my friends, family, and followers to actually make these things shorter, which is really hard for me to do because I've always had like a scholarly mind and I always like to go into the depth of things. A lot of people's biggest challenge when they're a public speaker is coming up with enough content to say. They're afraid they won't have enough to say. My issue is the polar opposite, okay? I always have too much to say. And my biggest struggle is trying to figure out what not to talk about, what to actually cut out so that I can make these things a little bit shorter instead of doing these 20, 30, 40-minute videos. So I'm trying to get better at that, guys. I'm listening to the feedback, and I'm trying to get better at making these things shorter. But it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard to make it shorter. So let me give you guys a few election updates. I'll give you a few personal updates. There's a great article from the American Thinker that I want you to read from my good friends over at the American Thinker, who I have written for numerous times. It was written by a gentleman by the name of J. Robert Smith. And I think it'll help you keep some sanity over the weekend as we continue to watch these crazy events not only unfold, but also not unfold. We seem to keep getting a lot of false starts, a lot of false deadlines, a lot of rollbacks that seem to disappoint a lot of people. And this is why I'm telling you guys to stay off the news, even if it's conservative news, even if it's news sources that you trust. I'm not saying to completely avoid those, but don't binge on them because all it's going to do is drive you crazy. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. But if you guys want to read this article, you guys got to head over to my YouTube channel to subscribe. Okay. So let's kind of do a little recap on everything that has happened during the week. Everything that's happened during the week, we'll start with, obviously we know the Texas Supreme Court, ruled against the case. That's old news. We had Mitch McConnell, affectionately known as the Turtle, which is what a lot of people call him. He's already basically trying to set the groundwork for the Republican Senate to not object to the certification that's coming up on January 6th. That may or may not work. All it takes is one person to disagree to send the entire thing into debate. And there have been 2 slates of electors that have been sent to Washington, D.C. for January 6th. All these 6 battleground states, they have all sent slates of their own electors, their Republican electors and Democrat electors that will be there on January 6th for the counting of the ballots. So that's the date to really look out for. I know I said that December 18th was the date to look out for, which is today's date. And a lot of people were expecting Executive Order 13848 to be unleashed today. The director of the NDI has delayed that report. The Supreme Court has delayed some things until January 15th, I think it is, 14th or 15th. So there's lots of delays going on, guys. And I always try to manage my expectations, but also manage everybody else's expectations. And I always try to clarify things. I always try to kind of, what's the word I can use? I always have to try to help you guys manage your expectations, because here's what you guys have to realize. We're dealing with the deep state here, And there's a phrase that I'm going to coin. You heard it first here on the Bobby Hesley Show. Let's get the hashtag going. But unfortunately, and I'm pretty disappointed about this, guys, but I'm going to be transparent about it. But I'm not going to hide my disappointment. I'm disappointed in the Supreme Court. I feel like they punted on an issue that they're pretty much born for. The Supreme Court exists to rule on the kind of issues that have been brought before them recently, and they punted on it. And I could be wrong about this, and I hope that I am. But I think we might be not only dealing with the deep state, but I think we're also dealing with the deep court. That's what I'm going to start calling the Supreme Court. Until they start ruling differently and doing their job, they're the deep court, guys. And I think it's Justice Roberts that's behind the whole thing. I've never liked Justice Roberts. I've always been honest in my feelings about Justice John Roberts. And the fact is, Justice John Roberts is running a deep court, which is part of the deep state, in my opinion. That's what it's looking like lately, at least. Now, there are still some Supreme Court cases that are pending. There's still the Pennsylvania case. There's a Dominion voting machine case. The one in Michigan that was in Antrim County is on the Supreme Court docket. We don't know if they're going to hear it or not, though. That remains to be seen. But it's starting to look like we're also dealing with a deep court on top of this deep state that is working very hard to get Donald Trump out of there. So the executive order 13848 has been delayed. I think the next date to look out for, and these aren't fake dates, these are all dates that we've known about for years. You know, EO 13848 was signed back in September of 2018. We've known about that for 2 years, so that's nothing new. January 6th is nothing new. That's written into the Constitution about when the electoral votes are counted and certified. So the next date we can look forward to, guys, is January 6th. And a lot is going to happen between now and then. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There is. There's going to be lots of ups and downs. And that's why my advice to you guys is to stay off the news. I mean it. Stay off as much news as you can. And the reason why you should is because it's not that we're losing hope. I'm not losing hope. That's for dang sure. I know you guys aren't losing hope. But the fact is, guys, it's not emotionally healthy. It's not spiritually healthy. And it's also not physically healthy to dwell on and obsess about things that we don't have any control over. And it's like I've said in my last few broadcasts, we have done and this is not a concession, guys. This is not defeat talking. This is not nihilism talking. This is just seasoned life experience and just some good old common sense talking, okay? We've done everything that we can do, guys. Like I said, we've got into arguments with people on Facebook. We've lost friendships. We've had fallouts with people just because we had the audacity to vote for somebody different than them and to support a candidate that's different from them, okay? We've rallied, whether it's braving the cold and Trump rallies like I've done up here in Michigan and many of my other friends, whether it's going to million MAGA marches over this last month with a combined millions of people that have gone there. We have signed sworn affidavits that have criminal penalties of 5 years in prison of perjury attached to them. Okay? We have done all these different things, guys. And I'm not saying that none of it is working or that none of it has worked or that any of it has been in vain. But what I'm saying is there's only so much you can do to fight things that are not within your immediate control. The only things that are within our immediate control are all those things that we've done that I've just mentioned. But there's also other things that are within our immediate control that we can and should focus on. And those things are this, guys, our lives. Now, I'm blessed to be an entrepreneur. I decided decades ago when I was 20 years old, I made a conscious decision not to go to college so that I don't have to go through things that a lot of people find themselves going through right now. I'm not knocking people who went to college. I'm not even knocking college. It's just that my personal reasons for not going to college is I wanted to always have control over my schedule, over how much money I make, over what I do with my time. But ultimately, I've always wanted to have control over my life. And for me personally, again, this is not a knock on people who have chosen otherwise. But for me personally, I've always felt that I'm not going to have the kind of control over my life that would make me happy if I had to work a job. I've always felt like the only way that I can have that kind of control is to be an entrepreneur, to have my own business. And honestly, guys, you haven't been seeing me posting every day or podcasting every day like I was for a couple of reasons. One, because there's only so much I can talk about that's not going to make us all lose our minds. The day-to-day ups and downs of this whole election, if it's hard for you guys to just listen to me talk about it, imagine how hard it is for you to be the tip of the spear doing all the research and actually trying to absorb all this information. And I've also got to be honest, I'm also starting to get tired of a lot of the fake news that's being put out by the right lately. By those on our side are putting out a lot of fake news. We just had a shooting here in Michigan a couple of days ago in a city called Sterling Heights. And you had a bunch of news outlets, a bunch of right news outlets saying that this was an affidavit, somebody who signed a sworn affidavit that was testifying against the 2020 elections that was shot. They were testifying against Dominion voting, or they're testifying against Biden or whatever. And that somebody pulled up on her and tried to get shot, and it was all caught on camera. And she was shot. She wasn't killed, thank God, but she was shot. And thankfully, the wounds were not fatal. But the fact is, guys, that's fake news, man. It had nothing to do with the elections. It was a jilted ex-boyfriend who she dumped, who couldn't move on, who was psycho, who shot her. It had nothing to do with the elections, guys. And there's even being fake news being put out now about the Pentagon refusing to work with the Biden transition team. That's fake news too. Because people are saying, oh, they're shutting down communications with the Biden team. No, a lot of people are taking off for the Christmas holidays, and they've decided to delay talks with the Biden team. It has nothing to do with them trying to block the election or sabotage the election. But lots of news outlets are trying to spin it that way. And to me, guys, that gets into that cruel, unethical, false hope that I refuse to put out. So if there comes a day where I don't have much to talk about because I don't have much more data than people that come to my show, which I thank God for, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about just stuff just so I can have stuff to talk about it. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to just, sell my soul just to have a bunch of followers. So so that's one reason why I haven't been podcasting as much, is because I feel like it's easier on everybody to just let things play out. We've got a few key dates we need to wait for, like January 6th and January 20th. I know I said today's date was one of those dates. And I said, when I said it, if you go back to my video, I did say that December 18th might come and go without any event. And if that day comes, we'll have to have a conversation about it. Well, that day came and went. Today pretty much came and went, unless there's an 11th hour midnight announcement that Trump does regarding this executive order. Today's date came and went. So our next date to look forward to is January 6th, as far as the election goes. But actually, the most important date that we can look forward to is December 25th, the birthday of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's an important date we should be keeping a lookout for. The second reason I haven't been posting a whole lot, guys, is because honestly, I'm taking my own advice. I'm avoiding hypocrisy. I'm trying to walk the walk. And I'm focusing on the things in my life that I have control over, one of which is my real estate business. And to be honest, I've been very, very busy with my real estate business lately. And I've been loving every minute of it. Because win, lose, or draw, whether we have another 4 years of Donald Trump, which we hope and pray for, and which I'm still confident we will have, we're just going to see how things play out. Donald Trump has not conceded yet, so therefore I have not conceded yet. Or if we have a Biden-Harris or Harris-Biden administration, neither of those is going to dictate what happens in my life. Is it going to make my life more difficult? Probably. Am I going to have to deal with more annoyances than I would have to do other than a Trump administration? Probably. Am I going to pay a little bit more in taxes? Probably. But there's workarounds. I've got good accountants. Am I going to have to wear these stupid face thongs every time I walk into Starbucks to get a coffee? Probably. But what you have to ask yourself is, who has control over your life? Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, China, George Soros, Black Lives Matter? None of those people have any control over your life, guys. None of them do. They can affect your life. They can either make it easier or harder. My position has always been, the government does not have control over our lives. The only power over our lives that the government has is they can either make our lives easier by getting the heck out of the way with less regulations, lower taxes, and less meddling in our lives, or they can make it more difficult. Now, At the risk of sounding insensitive, because I live in Michigan, which is one of the worst states, we have the worst tyrannical governor in the union, in my opinion, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. There are lives that she actually is destroying. They just signed another extension of all these businesses that she's forcing to shut down, all these restaurants that are going to be shut down through January 15th. I wish she would just come clean and be honest and say that they're going to be shut down until this election is over. Until either Trump or Biden has decided. Because that's, guys, I've been predicting for the last month that she's going to keep extending these deadlines. And sure enough, she has. Sure enough, she has, just like predicted. So there are some people whose lives the governments are destroying. But those people, I know that they work their whole lives. They have all their life savings in their restaurants. I know restaurant owners, and they are going out of business. But the fact is, the only thing that we can control when the government makes our lives harder, when they destroy our livelihoods, is to just build back. And I know it's going to take time. And that's why I want you guys to go over to my YouTube channel and read this article that I've linked to in the description on my YouTube channel. You'll have to subscribe to get it. And it talks about 12 different things that are within our control that we can do. Win, lose, or draw. This has nothing to do with whether Trump officially gets reelected, whether Biden gets in there. This is an excellent article, guys. I'm going to quickly go through each of these 12 points, and then I'm going to wrap things up, and I'm going to give you guys some final wisdom and encouragement, okay? So this article is titled, "What Can We Do?" It was written by J. Robert Smith. There's 12 points that he gives. I can't read the full length of each point, for the sake of time constraints. Number 1, he says, grousing about the GOP as a pastime. What's pastime is expecting or relying on the Republican Party to fight for us. It will not. It's time to organize outside of the hidebound two-party monopoly to build a sustainable, effective grassroots movement that surpasses the Tea Party in scope and length. Now, I'm not saying to drop out of the Republican Party and become an independent, but what I'm saying is we can kick all these rhinos out of the Republican Party. We can start a movement that's bigger than the Tea Party movement that was started back in 2010, and we can reform the party from within. Okay, we can. It just takes time and effort. Number 2, a key demand of the associations, all state election laws that enable the 2020 election thefts are to be repealed, not reformed, but repealed. No more universal mail-in balloting, election day voting only, though absentee balloting for truly exceptional circumstances. Paper ballots, hand counted, voter signature verification, mandated. Full transparency, elections integrity is non-negotiable. Number 3, where states fail to repeal the means of election fraud, patriot associations will hold shadow elections. And he gives a very interesting prescription of what these shadow elections should be. They're almost like practice elections, like fire drills, to train future party candidates that can step in and make a difference. And again, I'm only reading the short version of it for the sake of time. Number 4, litigate everywhere and often to defend or attempt to recover our rights. Do so in multi-party suits and class actions. Paper local and state governments and the federal government in lawsuits. Not frivolous actions, mind you, but relevant, impactful litigation. Put on government defense. Number 5, protest peacefully, not the peaceful protester version that we saw all of this summer of 2020 of burning things down and pillaging and rioting. This is true peaceful protesting like we've been seeing at these million MAGA marches, en masse, wherever protest is warranted, from school board meetings to state capitals to Congress to corporate shareholder meetings, whether public or private. Number 6, defend victims of Democrat and leftist injustices. Be they victims of cancel culture, tyrannical state governments like us here in Michigan, or malicious Democrat prosecutors. Stand with innocents who are targeted for ruin or are opportunistically attacked. 7, actively oppose pernicious cancel culture. Oppose political correctness. Do so boldly. Reject leftist language and narratives unceasingly. Champion honest narratives. The left learned long ago that owning language is a potent means of controlling people. Number 8, end the government schools monopolies. Number 9, unite as people of faith regardless of our religions. We must never apologize for our obedience to God. We must fight efforts to bully religion from the public square. We must defy laws that infringe on our right to express our faith. The left isn't secular. That's deceiving. The left is militantly godless, Leftists hate anyone of faith. They hate God. Let's make "In God We Trust" a rallying cry. Number 10, state nullification of federal laws. Extraordinary circumstances must give rise to extraordinary measures. Number 11, America's version of France's yellow vest uprisings. Unlike the French, though, we'll do a better job of hobbling the system, which leads us to number 12, mass nonviolent civil disobedience. Okay? And it goes into Henry David Thoreau's prescription of the best form of civil disobedience. That's very effective. So those are 12 things within your power that you can do, guys. Now, my heart goes out to all these restaurant owners. And it's sad to see all these restaurants destroyed that will never come back. But here's another thing that we have to realize too, guys. The restaurant industry is a very high failure rate industry. Whether we're in COVID or not, whether we have a tyrannical government or not, the majority of restaurants, guys, they don't last 5 years. I have multiple friends who tried to start restaurants that crashed and burned when there was no COVID, when the economies were free. So I'm not trying to obviously minimize the pain of those that are losing their restaurants. And most restaurants can still do carry out. The people that are hurting most with these restaurant shutdown, guys, it's not necessarily the restaurant owner themselves. Because I'll tell you, I know lots of people who own restaurants. I know some Chaldeans who own restaurants. I got other friends in other states who own restaurants. Business is better for them than it's ever been before, guys. The restaurant industry is booming right now. There's lots of industries that are absolutely exploding right now. The restaurant industry, the video game industry, the construction industry, the real estate industry, my goodness. And that's why I've been so busy. The people that are really hurting in this economy, guys, this COVID shutdown economy, are people that are in the service sector, your waiters, your waitresses, your busboys. Those are the people that are getting hurt by these restaurant shutdowns. Those are the people my heart goes out to. And yeah, you've got some restaurant owners who are also getting hurt. But the carryout is exploding, delivery's exploding, DoorDash, Grubhub, all those things are exploding like never before. So counterintuitive, the restaurant industry is actually doing very well right now. It's just the people in the service industry that are hurting, and our hearts go out to them. So the fact is, guys, stay off the news. You can only control so much. I want you guys to focus on the things in your life that you can control. Focus on your health. Focus on your finances. Focus on your relationship with God, with your spouse, with your children, with your friends. Focus on your career. Focus on those things that are within your control, that no matter who's in the White House, no matter what's going on in the country, no matter what's going on in the world, it will have no bearing on those things. And in my coming shows, guys, I will be giving you some news updates. If there's breaking news, you can count on your man, Bobby Hesley, to do his research and to pass on my learnings to you guys. That's always going to be there. But my show is also going to start taking a different direction. And again, this is not in a spirit of concession or defeat, but I'm also going to start talking about other topics and covering other issues. I'll still talk plenty about Biden, but my talks about Biden are going to go in a different direction. I'm going to expose him and Kamala Harris. There's a lot of research I've done on those two. There's a lot of research I've done on a lot of leftists and on a lot of Democrats. And to be honest, there's also a lot of research that I've done on a lot of these rhino Republicans that I'm also going to be exposing. Okay? So you're still going to get some news when it comes out, but my coverage of the news is going to get a little bit less and less for the coming weeks because honestly, guys, we just have to keep waiting. We have to pray, fast, and wait. And if something huge breaks, I'll cover it. But in the meantime, we're going to start talking about other issues that are just as important for you to know, that are just as important for us to talk about. So head over to my YouTube channel, guys. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell notification so you know when I go live. And you can read the depth of this article that I just gleaned through. So I want to thank you guys for coming out on a Friday night. Let's look at some comments here, and let's see if maybe there's a little bit of a conversation we can have if you guys want to talk for a little bit before I head out. Pretty much everybody's saying the same thing, guys. We're just waiting and praying. We're just waiting and praying, guys. The rest is in God's hands. And all I can say, guys, is I'm just glad that President Trump is the president that we have in office during all this craziness and not some of these other Republicans that already would have conceded by now. What was I saying over a month ago, guys? I was saying if this was anybody else, if it was Mitt Romney, if it was John McCain, if it was Mitch McConnell, if it was anybody else, they would have conceded by now. And what's been happening lately? You got Mitch McConnell. You got all these other Republicans that are already starting to concede, but they may not stick to that. We'll see. We just got to hang in there and see what happens. I'm still confident. I still think we have this in the bag. I still think we're going to win, but we're just going to let things play out, guys. Let the roller coaster, let the day-to-day roller coaster just do its thing. Just focus on those things you have control over in the meantime. And I will see you guys on the next broadcast. God bless and take care.